All right. Good morning. So, if I could remember our last class, we treated the Bootstrap card, right? And we were taught that card is one of the most used layout elements in web development. In other words, we use card to define the layouts, the shape of most especially the body section of our website. So I wanted to check, okay, so this is where, let me check the responsiveness of this. Okay, so this is a responsive card. Okay, so in this section, we are focusing on Bootstrap Carousel, right? Bootstrap Carousel, Bootstrap Carousel, Bootstrap Carousel. Bootstrap Carousel. Bootstrap Carousel. Let's start with the definition to enable us to know what carousel is used for. A Bootstrap carousel is a slideshow component. Is a slideshow component that cycles through a series of contents comma, such as images or even texts, So just to add more to it, note, in a rotating manner, So let me explain it like this. Carousel is one of the components that I want to believe every one of us must have seen in the website. You must have visited the website where you notice that images or maybe particular set of div and the content will be sliding simultaneously, one after the other. I believe you must have seen that, right? So that is why it is called slideshow. Because the content will be sliding, the content will be moving. Now, those images that will be sliding, if you are creative, you can turn them towards adverts. What do I mean? When somebody visits your website, those images, instead of just ordinary images, they can be a design, maybe graphic design, landscape, component that somebody have designed, and the person have crested some advertise or some information on those images that whenever any of them slides, you have a particular set of information you are passing. So that is why I said even tests. So we're going to start by looking at some of the classes. Remember that what we are focusing on majorly, as I've advised us in Bootstrap, is understanding the classes, right? The classes that are associated with each of these elements whenever they are used, whenever you use them. For example, you use form. So by now you should know the Bootstrap classes for designing what? Form as an element. So we want to also look at some of the classes that we need to know when dealing with what? The carousel. So right, our Bootstrap carousel classes. Bootstrap carousel classes. Bootstrap carousel component provide a flexible and responsive way to create images sliders. Bootstrap Carousel component provide a flexible and responsive way to create images sliders, galleries, and more. So therefore, to develop Bootstrap Carousel, I should come again. Yes. As a Bootstrap Carousel component provides a flexible and responsive way to create image sliders, galleries, and more. And I say, therefore, to develop or create a Bootstrap Carousel, the following classes might be needed or will be involved. The following classes might be needed or be involved. So just a quick explanation in brackets, you write the Bootstrap classes. The Bootstrap classes are attributes used in assessing. They are attributes used in assessing the predefined function, JavaScript function, for assessing the predefined JavaScript function and the CSS properties. I believe we understand that from beginning. Why do I need to use or align my elements means of identification, which is class, with Bootstrap version, so that that element can access the Bootstrap predefined JavaScript function and CSS property. Because we did mention when we started looking at the Bootstrap that Bootstrap is a JavaScript and CSS library, right? Which means that it's a compilation of JavaScript function which you ought to write or which you will have to write manually, if not that we are depending on Bootstrap. The same thing with certain CSS property, which we will have also need to write. So let's look at, so what I'm going to do is that there are so many classes attributed to Bootstrap Carousel. So I'm going to categorize them, because once I'm done explaining this, I'm taking us straight to the documentation to implement it straight away. That's why I just want us to understand the classes so that when we get to the documentation, you now know what each of those classes are doing. So it's now become a thing of choice, whether you want to silence a particular class just because you don't want the effect it produces. So let's start with the first class, container classes. Remember, we are looking at, if I were to be you write a subtopic, that is a classification of Bootstrap Carousel classes. So we are starting with the first type, which is container classes. When we say container, can anybody explain to me the kind of elements we refer to as container? D, how can you define container elements? They are elements that group, right? That group other content or element. Good. So we are talking about in the Bootstrap Carousel structure, there are containers that will be enveloping some other information. So we want to look at the classes that are connected to those containers first. So the first one is under the container. Okay, let me write it here also. BS container classes. BS container classes. Number one is dot. Please, you can be putting the dot or you just write it. We know that anything class starts with dots. So it's going to be dot carousel. So carousel is a class. Let's define it. The main container for the carousel, that is the one that will carry that class. The main container, the main container for the carousel. For the carousel. Now, who can suggest what that container element will be? That is div now, right? And that div will have a class, the very first div, just like when we were creating card, right? We had one first div, right? Which we are now having different words, other div, holding different content. So the very first div is going to be given class what? What is going to be the class of that first div? Carousel. Now, that carousel is the base word. Remember, I talked about what? Base class. Can anybody see explain to us what we mean by element base class and element what? Subclasses. Do we still understand that? Element base class is the one that carries which of the effects? The media query, the one that implements the responsiveness. So let's get that right. So another, we are still under the Bootstrap. We are still under the Bootstrap. We are still under the Bootstrap container classes. So let's take the next one is carousel hyphen inner carousel-inner. So this is going to be one of the class that will be assigned to this that we are assigned to the one of the container. So what will be the responsibility of this particular class? Right. This wraps the carousel item. This wraps the carousel item. So take for instance, you are creating, because when we define carousel, we said that it is used to slide what? Content, right? The content could be images, the content could be text, like I have highlighted. Now, the image and some description, probably together with the learn more button, they are three content that will be wrapped in what? A sub-div that will carry the class what? Carousel hyphen what? Inner. It's just like concept of card. There was a direct div that was holding the card content, isn't it? When I gave us illustration, I said we have the first div, which was class row. Huh? To what? To all right, let's continue. So let's round up the container category Bootstrap carousel classes. So the next one is carousel hyphen item. Carousel hyphen item. Carousel hyphen item is Bootstrap class name for individual carousel items. For individual carousel item. So these are some of the container category classes. So let's quickly look at the next class or category is control, Bootstrap control classes. Bootstrap carousel control classes. Bootstrap carousel control classes. So the first one we want to look at here is we have the .carousel. The .carousel hyphen control hyphen prev. You know, listen, you know, when the carousel, if you have ever seen it on the website, some have this pagination icon at the bottom, while some have a kind of arrow at the left and the right that you can use to next to the next image or the next content. And then, in case you want to preview, you want to go back to the one you just left. That is when this class will be in charge. So let's look at the definition. The carousel-control-prep is used for the previous button action. It's used for the previous button action. So the next control Bootstrap carousel class is, so let me just take this. The control is there. I will just modify this to text. So that is the next one. Sorry, next rather. Next. So the Bootstrap carousel control next is used for the next button. Is used for the next button. Is used for the next button. So we have another one, which is carousel control prep icon. So the icon itself, which is that arrow that you're going to be seeing, this is the class that we activated, that arrow. So let's look at the definition of that. This is used for generating the previous button icon. This is used for generating the previous button icon. So we have another one, which is next icon, control, generates the previous button icon. That's the previous one, right? So we have also for next, and then icon. We have carousel control next, then icon. And what do we achieve with this? This is used to generate the next button icon. This is used to generate the next button icon. So that brings us to that category. The next category is what I tag indicator classes. Indicator classes. So under here we have .carousel indicator indicators. Carousel indicators. And what is the role of this? The container for the carousel indicator. All these, we are going to see them once we visit the documentation. I said what? The container for what? Carousel indicators rather. So we have another one under the indicator classes. We have the .active. We have the .active. I should repeat the previous one. I said the container for the carousel indicators. The container for the carousel indicator. The container for the carousel what? Indicator. Are you with me? So the active indicates the current active slide. Indicates the current active slide. Just like the way we indicated what? The current active page. So we have some other classes we have some other classes. So these are the one we have under indicator. So the last category is other classes. Other what? Classes. Other classes. So outside the container classes, the control classes, the indicator classes, we have some of them which does not fall under any of those ones, but they exist. So we have .carousel under this. The first one is .carousel hyphen fade. .carousel hyphen fade under other classes. We have carousel hyphen what? Fade. And what does that represent? Enables fade transition effect. The way something is fading out. Enables fade transition effect. Enables what? Fade transition effect. So we also have under this other one, we have carousel. We have carousel hyphen capture. We have carousel hyphen capture, which is used to style captures for carousel item. It's used to style captures for carousel item. And then we have the third one, carousel hyphen dark. Carousel hyphen dark, which is used to darken the carousel control and indicator. It is used to darken the carousel controls and the indicators. To darken the carousel control and the indicators. Are we together? So now let's quickly go for the implementation from Bootstrap library, where we will now see where most of these classes that we have explained are fully in place. So of course, what I'm going to do here now, okay, let me still work with this file. So let me delete some of the design in order for me to have enough space for the carousel. So the first step is for us to go to Bootstrap. We have already installed our Bootstrap, right, in our project. So let's visit Bootstrap 5 library, search for the component carousel. So I'm going to Bootstrap 5. So from Bootstrap 5, remember how we can access component. We go to where? Component, right? Expand it. And then we are looking for what? Carousel. Can we see it here? Carousel. Now, you read through the documentation. Like I told us before, that any Bootstrap elements you want to implement, Bootstrap has its voluminous what? Documentation that explain the function, the associated classes, and even trying to explain how it works. So let's look at the simple. You can see that most of the classes that I mentioned, they are here. So, and the sample is also given to you here. So this one does not have control button. Please pay attention. It means that this one will be sliding on its own based on the time intervals what sets. So if you are creating basic websites where you don't want the user to control it, you can go with this, and this is the code, very short code. Now let's look at the structure of this code. Now, anywhere you see ID are used to access JavaScript what? Functions that have been written. Now, this one is a class that is used to control what? The slide itself. And then you will see some of them, like some attributes. You have some in-between attributes like data, VS, right. These are attributes that on your own, anyone that you see in a documentation, and if you read through the documentation before even application, you will see what each of these are meant for. Data, VS, target, attributes. What did they say is useful? That matches what? The ID of what? The carousel what? Element. So now let's check. This is another type of carousel. Carousel with what? Control. Adding the previous and the next control. We recommend using what? Button elements. But you can also use what? Anchor what? Elements with the role button. So you have to, if you are using anchor tag, you have to add what? This attribute called what? Role button, so that it will add like when you are using button. So this is it here. Let's look at the code here. Let's see where that role was defined. Now you can see most of the classes that we have talked about. You can see the class for the main elements, right? Then we use just carousel, which still work. But based on the development, you can also use what? Carousel what? Slide. So carousel is a major what? Class. Why this one is another class? Hope you know that. These are two different what? Classes. This is how we have been communicating multiple what? Classes in one class what? Attribute. Now here, carousel inner, this one that wrap what? The carousel what? Content from the node I gave to us. What we have inside, you can see that what? This one is the one that we added the active just to indicate when you get to the page, you know the active what? Carousel. But what we actually have inside this carousel, image what? Tag, right? And the image tag is an inline element, but it has to display within the carousel as a block element. That is the reason why you added what? The D what? Block. And you want the image to fill the entire carousel what? Width. That is why we put what? W what? As in 100, which you know. That is 100 what? Percent. I hope you are with me. Now, all I need to do, if I want to emulate this now, just copy this code and then go to my development environment. I think this is where I am developing. Then paste it. Then make sure that you have your images or the content you want to slide. Now, there is something I want us to know. If you put card, look up here, because the assignment I'm going to give you will contain that. Look up here. Let me start from the top here. This is the first word, carousel item. This is where it starts from. This is where it stops. Hope you are aware. What we have here, carousel item, active. But the active is not added to this one. We've discussed it now as one of the class. Now, what do we have inside the carousel item div? It's just what? One image. I can add what? Another element inside, provided I know the Bootstrap what? Classes to make that element responsive. I can add an entire card, that card that we learned the other time, that have like the row that contains the 3 cards. You can dump it inside what? This place. Which means what? The whole of that card with the whole of the div holding the 3 cards, all of them will slide at once. I don't know if you are getting my point. Did you understand it, Boski? Don't worry. Let's go back and do something. Just want you to understand something, because I expect your assignment to capture it. Let's go for card elements. Here is card element. Let's go for card elements. And then let's go to where we have 3 cards, right? That one that we use the other time. Okay, so now I'll take this code, right? The whole of this code now. Going back to my development environment, inside this carousel, this first carousel, I don't want image to display again. I just want those 3 cards. See what I did now. So if I go back to the front end now, go back to the front end, and check, you can see that where is it here? You know, we have not. Okay, we have not added the pictures, right? So let's go and add content and see how it's going to display. So where did I paste it now? I hope I can still trace it. Where did the card started from? This is, I think here, right? This is the first card. So let me add the first image. Then what should be in our card? Okay, let's say we are still using this content. And that image, remember that we have to add how many percent? Let's define the width of that image so that it doesn't, you know, disturb the width of the carousel that we are placing this in. So I will just give it there is class already here. The image has already come with its own what? Class. So let's say we want the image to be at the top. Then which class are we adding now? W what? Hyphen what? Should we say 100%?
If you want, like,
yes, good. Let's check it with what? Without the width first. Okay, that's a good idea. So you have it now. You can see that what? The three of them are there. This is it, Abby? I think it fits now. But let's check. Let me refresh. Let me refresh. I was looking at. I expected it to. Yes. Now that we are seeing, I said that is not there. Let me just. At least we noticed it was all the other time now. Let me see. Yeah, good. You see it now. So the three of them slide at the same time. So that why I have to show you this, so that you don't think that it's only picture. So there are some websites whereby what you have in DIV, maybe the 3 card or the 2 card, you want them to slide what at once. I don't know if you have seen website like that. It's not picture that will slide, it's the entire what DIV content that is moving. Good. So that is how to work with that. So I'll give us some time to implement it. So what you are going to implement for me now, you are implementing carousel for just images and then carousel with cards. Quickly start now. The next 20 minutes should be ready. And those images, put your real picture there, the text, edit the text. If I edit everything, the content should be edited. What do I mean? Like here now, I just substituted an image. I did not change this text. Change this text, put reasonable text there. Let's say you are building e-commerce website. Once you know the product you're talking about, please, if you are to use ChatGPT to generate content, make sure that everything aligns with the focus.